Hey friends, it's Elizabeth here from the Everyday Storyteller, and I am here with a process video for my 2017 December Daily. Yes, I said 2017. If you've been following this channel for a while, you will know that December Daily of 2017, my husband was actually deployed, and I never finished the last, I believe, 3 or 4 days of my album. So as part of the Done by December challenge that some of Ali Edwards' creative team are doing, in preparation for December Daily this year, I decided that I was going to finish up my December Daily of 2017. So as you could see, I already have a couple of the cards that I'm going to be using for day 22. I'm working on the back of that 4-pocket 6x8 card, one of which is see-through and has some glitter on it. So I'm gonna have to deal with that while I'm making this side of my layout. And as you can see, I'm just adding some photos to the story of this meal cards. So those came with the Ali Edwards Eat Story Kit, I believe, and I just measured. I don't have anything to say about the specific meals that these stories are about, so I decided to add in the photos instead of journaling. So right now you're just seeing me put my dates in. The only reason I know the dates for those specific meals is because of the photos that I took. Never underestimate the power of your photos giving you all the information that you need. And I actually changed my mind while I was filling out one of these cards and decided to use a full 3x8 on the right side. So I'm going to show you how I edited that 3x4 card into a 3x8 size. So I just created a 3x8 canvas here in Photoshop, and I'm going to go over to my my digital products, and I'm just going to drag and drop that story of this meal card from the Ali Edwards Eat Story Kit, and I'm going to show you how I will edit that into a 3x8. So first off, I'm going to choose my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to create a box around that lower half of the card. As you can see, my guides kind of help direct me on how big the card is. Once my rectangle is the way that I like it, I will right click and say layer via copy, which creates a new layer with the selection that I just made, and I'm just going to move that to the very bottom of the card, since that's where the bottom line would be. And now I just have to worry about that middle space. As you can see, it doesn't have a line. So I'm just going to go back to my rectangular marquee tool, and this time I'm only going to make a box around that middle part, so the two sides but no top and no bottom line. And I'm just going to make sure that I have the correct layer selected. That's super important. And then I'm going to click layer via copy, and here I am with another layer that only has the line on the two sides. So I'm going to make sure to align those properly with the top, and then I'm going to duplicate it again and then just do that one more time. My guides help keep me straight and in line, and this is a really easy way, without having to worry about messing with creating your own rectangle or anything like that, to extend a card like this that has a lot of white space. So I just like to merge the layers before I continue. I added my journaling and then also that green box at the bottom to remind me of the size of the photo that I'm going to add to this card. And this 3x8 card is going to be done here in a second. And then I'm going to take you back over to my desk, and I'm going to show you how the rest of this day turns out. So here we are at my desk. I'm going to cut out that 3x8 card, and since I had already adhered all of my photos, I am going to take off one of the photos from that 3x4 size card and re-adhere it onto the bottom of the 3x8. And that was literally just because I wanted to have a full 3x8 size for day 23. So I could have made it work with just the 3x4s, like 2 3x4s on one side, but I decided to just use a whole 3x8 so I could add a little bit more journaling, and then I would also have the room on the back to do this. So these are 4 photos that I took of my daughter in her high chair. I love her expressions. I could not pick just one photo. So I wanted to add all of them. I am going to go back to day 23 for a second, because as you can see, I have 2 spaces here. So instead of that knife and fork wood veneer that I colored using stamping ink, I'm actually just going to use this cork number 22. I believe this is from the Ali Edwards December Daily Kit from 2017. I might be wrong, but I have a lot of these in my stash. I'm also going to use one of the For the Love 4x6 cards that I'm going to cut down into 3x4, and that was from the Ali Edwards For the Love Story Kit, which I believe was December of 2017. So I'm going to cut that down, and I had some of the physical cards for the Eat Story kit. So I used one of those cards and a 1-inch punch to punch out that little knife, fork, and spoon, because I really liked that idea. I just I could not get the wood veneer to work for me. I don't know if it was on the backdrop of the gold that was messing me up or something like that, but it did not fit with this layout. So I thought this little circle worked really well, punched out. And I like that the red of the card corresponds with the red of the plates, and the yellow/gold of the utensils kind of matches with the glitter. So, all right, so now I'm going to move on to adhering that cork 22 onto the outside of my page protector. I started off using this Tombow Mono adhesive, which usually works really well for me, but for some reason, I think because it was cork adhering to the page protector, it just didn't really stick that well. So I end up going back and using a tiny attacher to adhere that down. And then once I'm done that, I'm going to be working on the start of day 23, which is on the back of that 3x8 card that I just created in Photoshop. I'm going to adhere these 4 photos of my daughter. We had a little mini photo shoot while she was at her high chair on the 23rd. Which ended up being the day that we actually opened Christmas presents, since my husband was in a different time zone. He was currently deployed. So that was something really fun, and I love being able to include all of these photos of her different expressions. These are smaller photos, but I really, really love that I could include so many and I didn't have to just pick just one. All right, so now I'm going to take you over to my computer and show you how I created a pattern using this 3x8 journaling card from In a Creative Bubble to make a 4x6 pattern for the right side of my day 23 layout. So I just used that same technique with the rectangular marquee tool to cut out a piece of that tree pattern. And now I'm just copying and pasting it over onto my 6x8 canvas, and I'm just going to fiddle with all 3 of those panels. I will change where they're located. I will experiment with which panel is on top of the other, just to make it a little bit more cohesive and make sure that everything is in line and everything looks like it's just one seamless pattern. And then to clean it up a little bit, because as you can see, if you look, there's a couple of asterisks that are only half visible. So I'm going to be using my eraser tool, and I'm going to erase some parts of that top layer so that you can see the asterisk underneath. So think of it as 2 pieces of paper, and you're kind of cutting out the top piece of paper so that you can see what is visible underneath. That's kind of what you're doing digitally. And then I'm also going to take my paintbrush tool, making sure that the color is the same as the background of my pattern, and I'm going to paint over some of the things that are visible. And I just do that because that was the bottom layer, and you would have seen the green had I used the eraser tool. So now I'm just going to merge those layers together by making sure that all 3 of those pattern layers are selected in the layers panel. I'm going to right click on those layers and say merge layers, and then I'm going to right click again and say set to clipping mask so that it clips to the rectangle that I created underneath. As you can see, you can still see some of that green, so I'm going to make sure that that rectangle is set to white so it just looks like one perfect pattern. And once that's done, I'm going to add my journaling and then take you back to my desk to complete this day. So first off, I'm going to add a puffy sticker embellishment to that 3x8 photo strip I created. I believe this is a Pink Fresh Studio collection from either 2016 or 2017. I'll have to look up the exact name. I'm not sure it's still available anymore, but I'm going to add that puffy sticker. I think it says It's a Wonderful Time, and I'm going to pull it back up so that I can add a tiny attacher to it, so a little staple, which I did because if I would have just stapled through it, I would have stapled on that story of this meal card, and I didn't want to do that. So I just pulled it back up, stapled it, and then adhered it back down. Once that's done, I'm going to move over to the right side of my layout. As you can see, I have the pattern that we created in Photoshop along with my journaling, as well as a piece of blue paper that I created just using the rectangle tool in Photoshop, and also a sentiment that says "So Very Merry." That is also from that In a Creative Bubble 3x8 journal card with the tree pattern on it. I just used the rectangular marquee tool to take that sentiment and resize it to fit as an element for this 6x8 page. So I literally used almost all of that 3x8 card in just different ways on this 6x8 layout. So I'm going to adhere that little blue strip to that white space in between my pattern and my journaling. I just thought that it needed a little bit of extra color, and I liked that that blue corresponded with the blue in my pajama that I am wearing. Yes, it is the middle of the morning, and I was wearing pajamas because we were doing our Christmas present unwrapping with my husband. Now I'm just trying to figure out what else I want to add. I already have this 3x3 circle photo. My husband and I have always had this tradition where we take photos of ourselves by the tree on the night that we unwrap our presents, which is usually Christmas Eve. As I said, this was actually the 23rd, and this picture is a little different because it's literally me and my daughter and my husband on our iPad as we were FaceTiming him. So that was something that was a little different about this year, but I love that I get to capture this picture, and it's imperfect, and that was totally that Christmas, so that's fine. I just added a stamped date to the bottom of that journaling. I don't quite like the way that that looked, but I'm not going to redo it or anything like that. And originally I thought that was how this layout was going to end, and I wasn't going to include a large date or anything like that. But then I found these really large numbers in my stash, and I decided I wanted to add them to this layout since this was kind of our Christmas. Even though it is day 23, this was the day that we opened presents and everything. So I wanted to kind of to make the date special. So I'm going to adhere this 2 and 3 number. I believe those are about 2 inches high, and I have no idea where I got them. These have been in my stash forever. But I decided to adhere those numbers together so that the 2 and 3 made 23. And then I'm going to cut out that So Very Merry embellishment that I created from the In a Creative Bubble card and add that to the top of my number. So as you can see, I'm just cutting that out. I'm going to use some foam adhesive to pop that up, and I'm going to put that straight in the middle of my 23. That also really works because I wasn't sure if the adhesive that I used was going to hold those two numbers together. So I was actually able to staple the two numbers together with my tiny attacher and then use that sentiment and the foam that popped it up as kind of a cover for the staple, which worked really, really well. So here I am. I'm just adhering that So Very Merry sentiment down on my foam. This day I had orange foam. If you have watched a couple of my videos, you know that I usually use just regular craft foam. And now I'm just trying to figure out a way to add that 23 into my album. I thought about adding it vertically, but I really wanted to see right off that it was the number 23. I'm just going to fiddle with my So Very Merry sentiment a little bit to make sure that it is straight. And I looked into my stash and I found this 6x8 pattern paper. Well, I guess it's not really pattern paper, but paper from the Jasmine Jones collection from December Daily of 2017. That was the December Daily kit that I chose for 2017. And I'm just going to cut a little tiny bit of that red so that I can use it to punch that 23 into my album. I believe someone out there sells a die that literally cuts out paper so that you can kind of like tab these extra embellishments into your album. But for me, since I don't have one of those, I kind of just use this 3x8 page protector as a guide to adhere those red strips to my number, and I'm just trying to make sure that they cover the holes so that I can punch through that red paper, and they also connect to the number. So it was a little bit finicky, and I cut out a little bit of the process just because I had a hard time getting everything straight, and I'm still not quite sure if those strips are actually straight. And once I have that positioned correctly, I'm just going to fold over those little strips just to give it a little bit more strength. And I'm going to adhere my number to the strips. And then I will use that 3x8 page protector as a template to kind of punch out my circles so that I can attach this number 23 into my album. And that is these 2 days of my December Daily of 2017 completed. Here's a little flip through, and I am so excited to have this album almost completed. I only have 2 more days, and I'm so happy that you followed along with me on this process video. Have a great day. Bye.